my name is Anna Dripseth, and I'm here today to talk to you about bees. Now, in 2018, we saw a lot of media on the bee populations, but it was spreading a lot of misinformation. Even my little sister jumped on the bandwagon and started her own bee saving squad, where they would go around the pool and save all the bees from the chlorine water. And then they went home and they planted little bee flowers that were friendly to the bee migration the bee migration path, and could help repopulate the bee populations. But a lot of this misinformation is coming from the media, where we aren't seeing a decrease in bees because of all of these things that the media wants us to believe, like ecosystem decline, which, yes, it's true, but more because of a financial loss. So today I'm here to convince you that insects should be protected by the government, farmers, and all generations. So let's jump into the problems before we look at the causes. The first problem that I've seen most often is the falling insect population, which is a very tender subject for many farmers. So as we see the decrease in the bee population, we're not just seeing bees, but all pollinators decrease. And this is due to a loss of ecosystem. The Business Insider says that 40% of all honeybees in the US died in 2018, which is why we saw all of this media coverage on the honeybees and why we need to protect them, which is understandable. We do. Um, Business Insider also says that 41% of insect species are in decline and that 31% of species are in the threatened category. And most sad is that 10% of insects are going through localized extinction, which means that in one area they're all dying. And this is due to a lot of health issues, especially in bee colonies. Bee Culture magazine says that the health issues of bees are astronomical and can be so difficult for farmers to deal with that it's almost not worth it. So some of the health issues that bees can go through are Verona mites, which are little mice that attach themselves to the bees and spread disease throughout the entire colony. Too much moisture can damage them. American foul brood, which is another disease for bees. Failed queens, starvation, and so many other things that can kill a beehive without even trying, which is why we're seeing such a big loss in our bee population. But the main problem that I would like to address is the financial risk for farmers. It's not that our bees are dying, it's that we're not paying our farmers enough. As we see in so many other places, like Cesar Chavez with the grapes, we just aren't paying the people who are making the most of our economy enough. Sorry, I get passionate. Okay, so our second problem is the financial risk for the farmers. The Guardian says that the bee farmers in US have about 10,000 hives in one area. We are doing mass honey bee populations. And in such a space of having 10,000 hives in such a small place, these diseases that we just looked at spread rapidly. They are rampant across all of the colonizations of bees, and they kill the bees so quickly that it's almost impossible for for a bee farmer to make a profit on them. And of course, they can save a beehive, but it is so costly that it almost is not worth doing. Therefore, they let them die off because they don't have the money or the resources to do this. The way the UK combats this is by having smaller batches of bees. So they have local honeybee farmers who have several crops growing and their honeybees, and in batches of about 100 to 200 colonies, and the diseases might cross-contaminate between two bee farms, but usually they're so small and minuscule that whichever bee colonies become diseased can be removed or challenged or taken away, and then the entire system is not hurt. So we're looking at this as it's so many bees in one place. It's the only way for it to be financially viable for an American farmer is to have so many bees, but it's also causing so many of the problems and stressors on the bees that are hurting them and causing them to die. So now that we've looked at the two problems, let's jump into the cause. The first cause is the loss of habitat, which of course we're looking at is the main habitat for bees is actually a domesticated farm. But even then, outside of that, we have more bees that are dying because of other issues within our environment. So, Growing Produce, a magazine, says that the northern Great Plains used to be a place where bees were sent to rest for their off season when they aren't making honey. But now the the northern Great Plains have been turned into row farming, which row farming, a different point, is terrible. Terrible, terrible. So when the bees were there to have their little resort and have a place to stay that they wouldn't be stressed out by the rest of their lives, uh, they were populating the northern Great Plains area with bees and repopulating and becoming stronger and cross-immunizing with other bees and becoming stronger. But now that we've turned this northern Great Plain area in America into row farming, the bees have nowhere to go and are stuck in their places and cannot go back and forth between where their farmers would send them to rest, and therefore are succumbing to this stress. The entire ecosystem, when the bees are taken away, the entire ecosystem falls apart because we have all of these birds and animals that are relying on insects and pollinizers, and the pollinizers and these plants are relying on pollinizers. The plants, the insects, the animals, and the birds who are relying on these insects all die. And then we have up a further step, anything that was relying on eating the birds now is dead. Anything that was relying on them eating the birds, eating the insects, eating the plants is now dead. And we have this entire ecosystem in disarray because we haven't given enough bees. The second cause, the most important cause, is the loss of profit that we see from farmers not being paid enough for keeping bees. Because it is such a risk, it is a financial risk to have a bee colony. The bees, NPR says that bees will survive. You don't have to worry about them. They will survive. It's the bee farmers that we should be worried about. The bees are a gamble, an eco-friendly gamble that will save the world and help repopulate everything with the plants. But row farming with crops is so much more attainable for so many more people. There are things like government subsidies coming in to help them farm corn, to help them farm corn for all of these other government subsidized things, so that the only thing that is actually profitable for a farmer, or it seems profitable for a farmer, is row farming with corn. But in reality, most of those subsidies come in and go out, and they don't help the farmer at all. And farmers are actually losing money on creating these crops for the people and feeding all of America. And the people who are feeding America don't have enough to feed their own children. But with bees, it's such a financial risk that they don't take it because it's not subsidized by the government. When something is subsidized, it means that they're giving money to keep it going. So the government wants, or the EPA wants more corn so that they can feed the population with corn syrup. But we don't want more honeybees to feed the population, feed America with more pollinated foods, which consist of watermelon and almonds and fresh fruits and vegetables. It's a whole nother thing. But if you're interested in that kind of thing, go read Omnivore's Dilemma by Michael Pollan. It is genius, wonderful, work of art. It'll explain everything to you beautifully. Okay, moving on. Sorry. Getting too passionate. Now let's look at some solutions. So, ABC News says that bees pollinate all fruits. The watermelon, the cucumbers, the apples, the peppers, anything like that we see through pollination. That is how they cross-pollinate with each other and then continue to grow and become stronger, which is why we need bees. So if we're using bees to help produce all the rest of our crops, why aren't they being subsidized? Why aren't we getting money? Why aren't we giving money and rewarding bee farmers for helping the rest of the crops profit and prosper? If we are to reward a bee farmer by giving them more money and giving them more reason to become a bee farmer, even in small batches, then we will see an increase of bees, an increase of pollination, an increase of insects, and then an increase of the entire ecosystem that rely on those insects. And because most of the habitats for bees at the moment are domesticated, that's what we need, is more domesticated bees. And also, if you subsidize the bees, then it's actually worth the farmer's time and money and crop and land so that they, won't starve, even though they are farmers. AG Daily, for our second solution, AG Daily says that educating our young people is the most important thing, and I cannot agree more. When we educate our young ones and our younger generations to try and help the bees in the ecosystem, and starting at the base and looking at the problems of, is it really the problem you're thinking it is? Or is it a problem of social justice? Is it a problem of ecosystem and being more green? Is it a problem of which companies you support or where you put your money? What is it? If we go down to the actual bottom and we start to look at the causes of things instead of the results that we're seeing, this is where we can actually change it and make it a better place to live, which is exciting. So today I've tried to convince you that everybody should care about the bee population and why it's in decline, because we should not let our farmers starve. They are feeding us. So hopefully the next time you buy honey, you can buy local and support a local farmer, and it's even healthier for you because it helps normalize you to pollen in the area. It's so good for you. Buy local honey, save the bees from your pool, help out local farmers. They are important, and we should be thanking them